It's the 18th already, believe it or not, of June. It's 2023 currently, somewhere about that. It always takes me a minute to get up to speed, my apologies. There's always something smurfs up when I start. It's not true. Hello, sheep. What are you calling sheep, Dana? You're a bigger sheep than we are. It's true. Yeah, let's get it on. Oh, I got lots of disgusting nuclear news to get through. Nothing else. I should cheer a few of us up tonight. Man, they're pretty crazy. Grossy takes the cake though this year, doesn't it? He replaced. Oh my God, I forgot his name. He's only been dead a couple of years. I forgot his name already. That's not acceptable. Where do you even want to start? Like, seriously, where do you want to start? So there's depleted uranium from America going down to, anybody want to guess? To Ukraine, Dana. Just say it and get it over with. So the British are shipping dirty bombs over. They're not Americans, sir. My goodness. We got updates from the 750 tanks that are empty because the Pacific and the planet has already been irradiated. Just don't ask your media for that kind of... Every time I think about South Korea, the last number of days, all I can go is, oh, God. But in reality, it gives me something to chew on, right? Now, they're going to do daily updates. I tell you how bad South Korea. Korea is revolting in the streets. The Korean government, I remember protests going on in South Korea, it's got to be 20 years ago. And the citizens, the people who hired the government, the victims, the people of the country, the victims of the country, because everybody's a victim unless you work for the government, which is, you suppose you're paying for it, and they just immediately cut your throat as soon as they get the job. And so anyway, the protesters had 4-foot bamboo sticks. So you can get this little whip. And the police had the same thing. And one of the back notes of South Korea, the average person over there was a 4th-degree black belt in Taekwondo, which is the most aggressive martial arts out there, I think. And so the average person, there's tons of 5th and 6th and 7th-degree black belts in South Korea. And so imagine getting hit with a 4-foot bamboo stick by one of these people. So the police got to be at least a 4th-degree black belt to join the police force. And a 4th-degree black belt is considered a perfect student. They're just considered a perfect student in the arts itself, right? But to the average person, 4th degree is like, whoa. But in reality, they're now a perfect student. It's like a guitar player or whatever. A musician, they got to learn everything first. It takes a couple of years for hand and eye coordination to work. It'll work for everybody if you try. For a couple of years, you'll get it 3 or 4 times a week. It'll come to you. And so now they're faced with a dilemma. They have a society who don't need guns because they punch really hard and kick real hard. And so the reason that the police had 4-foot bamboos and the victims, the citizens of the country, had the 4-foot bamboos, the police said, we can use tear gas and water cannons, and we can have shields and everything else, but we're going to lose respect across the country right away if we do that to them. Because you're talking about people that are 4th and 5th degree black belts. Each family has a couple. So they're very attuned in, and they're very powerful, right? So they can make a weapon out of just about anything at that degree. Contaminated Fukushima water discharge sparks daily Korean government briefing. So whatever people you're looking at on the stage, what have I got down now, I wonder? Oh. Dana. Those are at least 4th, 5th, 6th degree black pills, the majority of them. But if you haven't considered liking, subscribing, notifying, if that works for you. It usually doesn't. I get a lot of people tell me they're unsubscribed from me, they can't leave comments, the list goes on. And over and over and over and over, some people being kicked off over and over and over and over from the subscription. The majority of the people that are commenting, because I can see who's subscribed, who's not. It's pretty rare to see somebody who's actually subscribed that is commenting. It either doesn't show up or they're been unsubscribed and they don't realize it. Okay, so here we go. Hope everybody's doing good. We got a poll before we get really going here. Has the nuclear power plants worldwide emissions destroyed the future of humanity and millions of the species? And they've done it by radioactive emissions, because they're all hemorrhaging radiation from the fuel pools. And it's hard to comprehend it, right? Because you normally associate a meltdown explosion, right, with fallout. But the fuel pools, there's 1,000 of them worldwide with decades of reactor cores that are splitting the atoms. They're boiling off about 120,000 liters a day in each fuel pool. There's 1,000 fuel pools. 120,000 liters in each fuel pool. And each liter is just trillions of man-made atoms because it's splitting atoms. And a lot of it short, but not so short it can't circle the planet a couple of times. Levels consistently rise and fall on a 40-day cycle. Fukushima radiation still circling the globe. No, it's a continuous plume. There's a difference. There really is. So when you say circling the planet, it's like this invisible plume. Oh, God, it's over our country. No. It's over everybody's country and the oceans and the fresh waters. And all the species in the forest are getting full-body X-rays from the gammas, the alphas, the neutrons, the betas. Radioactive plankton, the basis of the food chain, plankton, the basis of the carbon sequestering chain. Plankton, right, the biggest producer of oxygen on the planet. 50% of the oxygen is coming from the Pacific, and plankton is a big part of that. Radioactive planktons are so heavily contaminated. That's why you've seen all the whales show up with leukemia, emaciated. The seals and sea lions and that, right? Contaminated food, they're at the surface. And on top of that, when the ocean recycles itself, it takes the nutrients that fell to the ocean floor and cycles it back to the surface with the radiation attached to it. Contaminated, okay. So this story, you look up in the... It's a pretty belligerent story, I thought, and I'll read it, the key spots. Fighting misinformation. Business Korea since '83. Premium business news portal. Am I crooked or something? What's going on? You're too big, Dana. Get smaller. Me, big head. Boom, boom. How about that size there? Let's look. I can go on the other side of the screen. Give me a second. How about if I go over here from now on? spice things up a little bit. How's that going to look when I fade in and fade out? Oh, I'm still going to fade out all the way over there. Look at that. What the hell, man? Yeah, let's spice it up for a couple of years, and I'll start on this side. Make things interesting around here. Prompt the Korean government to hold daily briefings on the issue to actively deal with fake news, fear-mongering. Fear-mongering. Fear-mongers. They're talking about people like me. About time. There's only one of us. Why not use my name? Why not give me some street creds here? He's a fear-monger. Don't listen to Durnford. Well, let's validate their concerns then. Dana, the fear-mongering. So are the fuel pools still at the top of the buildings? Are the reactors in good-looking shape? You see the pretty building over there? Oh, I even got the right point on the first time. So that building up there is reactor 3. Behind me is reactor, well, the stumps are reactor 4. And that's where reactor 3 went over there. Look at that. Knocked the fuel pool right out of the building. So let's see what they're talking about. To actively deal with fake news and fear-mongering. It's been a while since we heard the word fear-mongering. It shows up, but it's been a while. First couple of years were pretty rough, but lately, the last 4 or 5 years, pretty rare. Unless it's Schellenberg or somebody like that, or Rod Adams. Or the Korean government, Kathryn Higley's back tonight. The human pig itself. The Korean government will crack down on those who make and distribute fake news. What are they talking about? There's no debate allowed? No dissenting voices allowed? Really, South Korea? Park Kyunghee, an official with the Office of the Government and Policy Coordination, but the government is the people. They paid you, they're paying your job to do a job. They're not paying your job to screw them over like you're doing, by the way. Park Kyunghee, you naughty weirdo with 4 or 5 or 6 degree black belts. It plans to hold daily briefing on the contaminated water at 11 a.m. every day. There must be some turmoil over in South Korea right now over Fukushima. It's already happened, stupid. I hope South Korea would be a great country to wake up first. At 11 a.m. every day except for holidays. They're going to take holidays off. It's not patriotic, is it? So they're going to hold a daily briefing on fake Fukushima tanks and water every day until people stop screaming. There's over 85% of the people are very upset, and they're very upset on social media. And so the government couldn't miss if they wanted to. A professor of nuclear engineering at Kyunghee University. Don't you just love the names they got? Kyunghee. It wasn't like all the other Kongs. Daily briefing. We should not allow concerns to grow. You shouldn't allow anybody to have a debate due to a lack of information. Well, like, obviously what you're talking about is pretty sinister. Why would you have to control the debate? What's up with that, dog? This is a model from France. You like France, don't you? Or is this disinformation too, I wonder? This is the plume covering the entire planet. And we're at day 15. We're at day 20. You kind of get where I'm going with this? The whole planet is covered in radioactive fallout from 8 fuel pools and nuclear meltdowns. What you're talking about is completely bizarre. Who the frig do you think you are? You're telling your citizens they can't have a conversation, they can't have a debate, they can only use your narratives? Your narratives, if the buildings don't look like that, and that never happened. It never happened. Because you want to have a renaissance in South Korea, so they're willing to poison everybody and deceive everybody so they can get their nuclear renaissance for a corporation. It's the very definition of what the frig, man. What a stupid industry. As a result of the radiation monitoring conducted so far, the radiation concentration in domestic coastal waters remains at levels before Fukushima. But we got tons of headlines in South Korea, and we know that's not true. Bastards. Hang on. You gotta make it rough on me all the time. Bloody journalists. They're like a plague, eh? The worst thing ever happened to humans was a journalist. South Korea. Let's see what the good book brings up. Whoa, that's pretty cool. Let's start off with that puppet. 1,000% normal background radiation, 1,200 kilometers from Fukushima in, South Korea. Fear-mongering. Contact the Canadian embassy, get Durnford shut down. As a result of the radiation monitoring conducted so far, lots of attacks today. What the hell is up today? The radiation concentration in domestic coastal waters remain at a level similar to that before Fukushima. Naughty. Well, so now they're claiming, this administration in particular is claiming there was nothing. Hard cases. But there's tons of evidence that they found massive radiation throughout their country, in their seaweeds, and their coastlines, and different samples. It's about 7,000, 100,000 set by, so they're saying the levels are 7,000 to 100,000 of those set by the internationally accepted safety standards because they haven't got their own brain. They're talking about UN, right? UN rules the planet. There is no... Well, I can guarantee you, South Korea, 0.81 microsieverts, which is very, very conservative to the truth, is not what you're suggesting. He said he tested 29,000 radiation tests from Fukushima's accident showed South Korea's seafood is edible. There's a huge... They don't want to see any drop in seafood for some reason. At the distribution stage as well, 46,000 tests conducted by on Korea seafood to date. All of the distributed stage results shown that Korea seafood is fit to put on the table. So this is just pure garbage, what they're talking about. The value of 1 million Korean fishermen is at risk. So you're going to keep them fishing in radioactive oceans and poison the population of the entire planet, is what you're saying. 1 million fishermen. I don't think there's that much. If you count the onshore employees and the sellers and stuff like that, I guess. But I'm pretty sure it's not 1 million fishermen, is it? The headquarters says we will resolutely deal with any unfounded anxiety and fear causing the consumption of seafood to decline. So no truth allowed, is what they're saying. Zilch. We are going to clamp down on everything that breeds. By the way, Korea shipped back 6 million pounds of seafood to Japan. That was incredibly... So how much got through? I wonder. Why is there radioactive seafood like that, but not in South Korea's water right behind it? How is that even possible? I left a little comment because it irked me. I'll do that once in a while. To suggest the Japanese radioactive fallout does not affect South Korea is dishonest, to be polite, and criminal. As South Korea shipped 6 million pounds of seafood back to Japan due to the radiation in just one go. Well, let me leave you with the headlines of Fukushima fallout, so at least there is one honest person in the story. So I was pretty indignant at that stage, right? And so I gave him a bunch of headlines, but I thought about it and I was like, when you have to lie and destroy endless people by those lies for a job, that you're no longer an employee but a deranged mass murderer. And to today, that comment is still there. That's the only comment on the story. But the story was vicious, eh? There was some vicious stuff, man. Calm down, man. Chill out. The U.S. will send depleted uranium munitions to Ukraine. This is Kathryn Higley, the Oregon State University. We know Kathryn. Kathryn's deranged mass murder. She's incredibly articulated and educated, but I'm going to play a video clip of her, but she's vicious scum, man. But this story really helps articulate how, and if they're rolling out Kathryn Higley, this is a bad story. U.S. will send depleted uranium munitions, a.k.a. dirty bombs, to Ukraine. And he brought out Kathryn Higley to explain the health and environmental effects. Some interesting propaganda here, actually. We know her as Monster. The conversation, the Biden administration agreed to provide Ukraine with depleted uranium shells to equip the M1A1 Abrams tanks. They actually shoot the 155 millimeter depleted uranium rounds. This is a 900 foot kill ratio. Turns everything inside that into projectiles, radioactive projectiles. And so people used to go back in their homes after the Americans blow everything up. I actually got an example at 155 millimeters here. I haven't played that for a while. Very wet, mate. 155. Type it in, Dana. Don't just hit the keyboards. Look first. Now I gotta sing. Come on. Actually, that's pretty. If just a lot of my computer. Let's put it that way. This is just a 42-second clip. And this is what 150 millimeters done to a city in Syria. These are depleted uranium rounds. They kind of took it to hell, right? But let's play the clip, and you can see how sadistic these people actually are. To get 10,000 ISIL, there's only a couple of hundred was around this community. This is what they done to the community. Well, it was a community. This is all residential. And baby, they took no mercy. There was no mercy on this city. There was no mercy. This is what stuff we seen in World War II that blew us away, right? There's nothing left anywhere. To get 10,000 ISIL, which was a spin-off from the Taliban, right? And then there was 100 of them became ISIL, then there was 10,000 ISIL. There was 100 went down to Africa, became the Boko Haram, then there's 10,000 Boko Haram. Before that, there was 10,000 Mujahideen. And then they got wiped out except for 100, and they turned into 10,000 Taliban. They got wiped out and turned into 10,000 ISIL. They got wiped out and turned into 10,000 Mujahideen, or Boko Haram in Africa. 10,000 Hamas in Palestine. It's like a magic number. They can't get not a one of them, but they can get everybody else. Vicious scum, eh? That's depleted uranium. It's not that you... It's just well to destroy everything because you can't go back anyway, right? But the babies being born in Basra, for instance, 84% of the children were disfigured completely. So the women went on birth control, all of them, because it was a crisis and just a disaster. depleted munitions, this is Kathryn Higley speaking, are not nuclear weapons that do not produce a nuclear explosion. Now, pre-Ukraine, I've never heard it described that way before, and there's quite a few times now we've talked about depleted uranium from the British, and now the American cycle is coming out for the next week, I guess. Let's keep going. This is such a bizarre story. Engineers use a process called enrichment to extract uranium-235. What's left over from the process, remove some of the uranium-235, is called depleted uranium. They're dirty bombs. If you take one of these and detonate it with explosives in a community, the Geiger counters, they're going to call it a dirty bomb. And they're going to have to abandon that part of your country for a bit, a couple of thousand years. If you were being honest, right? DU is a byproduct of nuclear fuel cycle. Boom. Boom. It's already gone through the fuel cycle. The fuel cycle is a war machine, see? So anything that's gone through the fuel cycle, that's a nuclear, it's a dirty bomb. So it does blow up though, because it's pyrophoric. It catches fire as it's going through the air and liberates the radiation along the path that it's traveling. So it contaminates all the farms and drinking water and wells and everything for thousands and tens of thousands of years. Advanced tanks use DU, which used to be called depleted uranium, DOLRAM, depleted uranium low-level radioactive material. And it's important, right? Somebody got rid of the latter part of that acronym, and nobody really knows who done it or when, but it disappeared. Advanced tanks use depleted uranium, DOLRAM, in their armor to protect against armored period munition. So if they get blown up, that's a dirty bomb, big dirty bomb. And they got 1 billion pounds to get rid of, and they're creating more all the time, right? Especially places like McAllister. That's all they make is dirty bombs. Once the munition penetrates a target, because it's pyrophoric, it's on fire, literally a blob of depleted uranium, it may fragment into smaller pieces and ignite. Well, that's an explosion, igniting, causing further damage. It's a polite way of saying it contaminate the land, the food, the water, the air for thousands of years. In addition to the US and UK, Russia, France, and China are known to have DU munitions in their arsenals. And other countries may be importing them, so shut up. DU also has non-military applications. Get a load of that? They use it in ballast and weights and provide stabilities in ships and aircraft. Really. We covered this before, but that shocks me whenever you see it. They're putting dirty bombs in ships and aircrafts. And how do you dispose of this? You can't just dispose of, well, they can, I guess, but typically you can't dispose of this stuff. Now, if you got it and take it out of the ship and put it in your house, you're a terrorist. The alpha radiation, well, it's going to be emitting more than alpha. It's not strong enough to penetrate a human skin. No, but it's gone through a chain reaction, so there is splitting atoms going on in it too. Just being near depleted uranium is not a health risk, and actually it is. And we know that because the soldiers that came back from Desert Storm were sitting on this stuff, and a lot of them had, a significant amount had rectal cancer. And a significant amount, because they were sitting on it in the tanks, right? And a significant amount of them had children with congenital malformations. Just horrific, debilitating deformations. Shrapnel fragments are retained in the body. So they're saying it won't hurt you unless you get the shrapnel in your body. Well, you do because you breathe it in because it's pyrophoric, but it's still, some of it is splitting atoms. It's gone through a chain reaction. That's the reason the chain reactions are an issue, because what comes out splits atoms. US and UK government clearly believes providing DU munitions will improve Ukraine's ability to defeat Russia tanks and bring the conflict to an end. The war machine might want this never ending. This is like a 10-year war ahead of us. Moving weapons, nuclear weapons, Russia's putting them in Belarus, America's got them in Poland and everywhere else through the proxy war that is NATO that's not supposed to exist. NATO was created in response of the USSR. Kathryn Higley. Let's play a clip of Kathryn Higley, a distinguished degenerate professor of scumbag nuclear science and engineering at the Oregon. She's a real work of art, this one. Received funding from the U.S. Department of Energy. She's a new U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the International Atomic Energy Agencies, the Pacific Northwest National Laboratories, and Vanderbilt University. So she's getting money from the Department of Energy, the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the Pacific Northwest National Laboratories, Vanderbilt University, and she's affiliated with the National Council on Radiation Protection and Measurements, the International Commission on Radiological Protection, the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the Nuclear Energy Agency. So it's 100% evil, a 100% degenerate monster, a 100% useless human. Oh, Kathryn, you never ever cease to amaze me. She's got an amazing education just to be a scumbag on top of that. And so you got a bunch of the usual suspects. You got, what's his face? I'm getting confused here. You got Berkeley down in the corner, right here. What's his name? There's the guy, the Japanese guy alongside of him was from TEPCO. I can play that clip of him in Reactor 4. That always cheers me up, by the way. He's such a great lawyer. And then you got the one-armed bandit, Miles O'Brien. You got what's-her-face from the NRC itself. I can't remember who he is. And the esteemed mass-murdering Kathryn Higley is at the helm. Let's play this clip. Get out your vomit bag.
When I was trying to pull this talk together, not only will I sort of get a little philosophical about the impacts and the like and try to put things in context, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about who are these radiation experts that get trotted out in events like this or that get to participate in various activities and analysis to make pronouncements about is something safe or not safe. And if you look, you'll see organizations that are often represented, the ICRP, International Commission on Radiological Protection, a premier organization. You'll see UNSCEAR and IRPA. So UNSCEAR is the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation. IRPA, the International Radiation Protection Association. The IAEA and some of its folks, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Our own US NCRP. And then there are a number of other organizations. So there's PAHO, there's the Health Physics Society, there's World Health Organization. All of these will bring in, as necessary, experts to speak to you on issues related to radiation protection, radiation safety, and impacts. But if you go a little deeper and you start looking at these organizations, the ICRP, for example, very well known, it's been operating nearly 100 years, not quite. Main commission, 10 people. It's got 5 standing committees. So it's 100-ish folks. I lead one of the 5 committees. If you look at the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation that looked at the effects from Chernobyl, from Fukushima, from other areas, and that has about 30, roughly, countries that are represented in that group. If you start teasing through these pictures, you're going to see the same people on every one of those organizations. So the same people from ICRP are on UNSCEAR, they're in IRPA. If you look at the NCRP, again, the US organization that advises the country on radiation protection issues, it's 100 people, a lot of gray-haired 100 people. And most of them are part of UNSCEAR, are part of IRPA, are part of ICRP, participate in IAEA. So the result, or the real world, is that there's not that many folks that really do radiation safety, radionuclide transport, dose calculations, all of this in the world. It's a pretty small club. And we wear 20 hats. Today I put on 3 pins, and I could put on a whole bunch more, but Health Physics Society, ICRP, Certified Health Physicist, I've got NCRP on there, I've done IAEA, and so the point is, we're a small group, you should cherish us.
It's the farthest thing from a human. If you took her DNA, it'd probably melt the vial. It's so evil. They're using a DU in Iraq. Like Iraq is using. That's the DU they were using in Iraq. The U.S. will send depleted uranium munitions to Ukraine. And Kathryn Higley's here to make you stupider. And if you don't know the subject, she's going to suck you right into the idiot. But she got the education to get that job. She excelled at being a scumbag on top of it, and she's in all kinds of these just to be a scumbag. Right? Because just to poison the planet. That's her thrill, I guess, right? She's incredibly educated, professor in a university, and just one great big stupid genocide machine with the disinformation that she's able to put out. Imagine the students that she's producing, how evil they're going to be. How many generations of scumbags has she ushered into wreck humanity with? The United States, so this story here is important. This is a 2019 story. The Americans wanted to get rid of a little bit of their depleted uranium munitions for that's the A-10 Warthog Gatling gun they're showing you right there, by the way. So the studies, the question is disposal of 35.7 million ammunitions with a core of depleted uranium, dirty bombs. 36 million dirty bombs. Yeah, we got too much. Thought there was going to be a war, you know. That's some demonic stuff in it. And there's a few of these munition factories that make the depleted uranium. But the one that everybody should know about is McAllister, Oklahoma. They have, there's a big, there's a lot of buildings that site. It's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. But they have 3 factories there, and all they do is make dirty bombs. It's absurd. The A-10 Warthog in the background, that cannon shoots 1.5 tons of dirty bombs a minute, 1.5 tons. And the 700 tons they used in Kuwait, outside of Kuwait, the highway of death, in 3 days, they used 700 tons of dirty bombs. And a Japanese physicist at a Hamburg conference in Germany, calculated it to be equal to about 44,000 Hiroshima's worth of radioactive fallout, low-level fallout. This has already gone through a chain reaction, so it's going to be splitting atoms, a lot of it, right? McAllister has 3 massive, huge, just as much more, but these 3 great big, there's 1,800 people in the community, that's where they all work. At those 3 factories. They have a lot more than that going on there. There's massive sites. The U.S. spends more on nuclear arms in 2022 than all other nations combined. Yeah, we don't need that. Taxpayers don't need jack shit. I've done a calculation, I'll show you coming up in this right away. The world, but like when you look at the whole world, worldwide, and these are scary, dirty bombs. These are nuclear weapons that are. So the world's nuclear power spent nearly 44 billion. America basically say 22 billion, right, on nuclear weapons. They just got $1 trillion to blow on it, so those numbers are going to go up. Of mass destruction last year at $157,000 per minute. You know what that looks like? There's 1,440 minutes in a day, and there's 60 seconds in a minute. That's 86,400 seconds each day. 86,000, so that's 31 million over 365 days. That's 31 million. So that's 15 million houses, 15 million houses America could have bought and gave away each year that were worth $160,000 each. So there goes all the homeless, period, right? There goes all the impoverishment, period. And then we're only talking about the nuclear weapons. The bombers that are flying these things around 24 hours a day, the submarines that are lugging them around all over the ocean 365 days, the aircraft carriers and everything else. When just fuel, you could have bought another 30 million houses. But worldwide, you could, over a decade, that's 300 million. So, half the price, 90,000, say, or 80,000. Hang on, $80,000 a house. You could basically build and pay for scotch-free 100 million houses a year. And so over a decade, that's 1 billion people could have had really nice houses. And over 5 decades, that's 5 billion people could have had real nice houses. Not counting everything else, just counting the nuclear weapons expenses only. So there's, and then all the precious metals and resources get sucked up into stuff like that. There was a depleted uranium storage facility that burned after the quake. Remember, when you see these Fukushima stories, sometimes you'll see a refinery with huge flames, balls of flames, and they'll call it Fukushima. That's actually one of the depleted Dulram sites. They lost 1,800 pounds. And so they add this stuff to fracking explosives to make them 8 times more powerful. But, it's harmless, right? It's like tritium, it's harmless, but we need it for nuclear weapons because it doubles the power, or even better. Anyway, the Americans could do 150 million homes free every 10 years of just nuclear weapons, the money they waste on that. And they can't use them because nobody can cash their checks again after. The Breakthrough Institute launches, and we covered them last show, or second last show. This was started up by Michael Schellenberg and Thornburn. The Breakthrough Institute launched mobilization efforts for Build Nuclear Now, which is a spin-off from Environmental Progress, which is Michael Schellenberg. Campaigned with 6-figure ads, $100,000, $200,000 ads, boys in targeted states. So they're just throwing money around, the Breakthrough Institute. And whenever you see stuff like this is a really sign of desperation. Build Nuclear Now, which was, and they even got Mothers for America or Mothers for Nuclear or something in this lot. And the Climate Can't Wait. Climate Can't Wait is a campaign, right? From Build Nuclear Now, which is, they even got what's-her-face in their, that crazy bitch, hang on. Well, I shouldn't complain, because if I can't remember her name, that's a good thing. But her smile will haunt me for many years to come. Let me see if I can find a picture of her. Oh, it's the other direction, Dana. Ooh, that was James Hansen I seen that time. Damn it, I probably won't get a good sleep tonight after seeing that creature. Yeah, she's creepy. This, the hell name was it? The New Green Deal or something? She doesn't even know how to take a picture. Look at her. I wonder who her parents were in the nuclear industry, because you know they're in the nuclear industry. Stand Up for Nuclear, which is another spin-off from Michael Schellenberg. Mothers for Nuclear, and he's helped fund them. Nuclear New York and Green Nuclear Deal. Green Nuclear Deal is Megan, is it? I can't remember, thank God. Build Nuclear Now is a national campaign engaging Americans, and they're vicious. The Breakthrough Institute, they don't like dissent at all. They don't take no for an answer. They're vicious. They're like they'll hold a grudge. They're so pro-nuclear. They make Rod Adams look like he's constipated. Build Nuclear Now, and Rod Adams is a vicious scum propaganda machine, right? Build Nuclear Now is a national campaign engaging Americans in targeted states to call for regulatory legislative changes to accelerate the licensing, and they come every 6 months or something. And so this is kind of like, this is just lobbyists. They're all lobbying groups, right? But they got these corporations so they can funnel money and steal it for themselves. And they got a lot of influence, so they'll give journalists $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 to run stories, right? Then they'll come back and do 2 more stories. And so now they're really good friends with that media forever. Mobilization campaign is supported by 6 figures and boys in multiple states to engage the strong majority of Americans who support nuclear, which is simply not true. There's no strong majority of Americans support nuclear. So what they want is you to do their work as lobbying groups. They got to motivate you. You need nuclear, or your toilet will break, and you won't be able to get any more dish soap. So you better get nuclear. Advanced nuclear energy will be the safest energy technology ever utilized by human society, and is necessary to deeply decarbonize the U.S. economy, said Ted Norris, the executive director of the Breakthrough Stupid Institute. He's such a vicious lawyer, but he's been at it for so long. Him and Michael Schellenberg started that up, right? They're vehemently pro-nuclear type. But these small modular reactors are just propaganda. The 2 AP-100 reactors will soon commence commercial operations, represent the only reactors that the NRC, the Non-Regulatory Commission, has ever licensed to be commercialized since their founding in 1974. So there is no nuclear renaissance, and that's why they got all this money. Desperate. It's a last-ditch effort before geothermal gets into the lexicon. So that's 50 years, 74, 84, 94, 2004, 2014, 2015. That can't be right. 84, 94, 2004, 2014, 2024. That's right. So 49 years. That's the only reactors. And they were so far over budget, so far behind schedule. Westinghouse went bankrupt, for goodness sakes. The Americans... subsidy. Overregulation of disease factories is imposing huge public health burdens. So that's a disgusting way to frame that narrative, as it's a public health burden not having disease factories polluting your air and farms, especially undeserved communities from air pollution. And so this is on purpose, that narrative. If you built your coal plants 50, 60 miles away from the community, Nikola Tesla made it possible over 100 years ago, but no, let's put it in the community so everybody will get sick of it, and then we can push nuclear down their throat. Adam Stein. So they got all I can't remember how many people, there's like 6 or 7 works at the Breakthrough Institute. They have a budget of $5 million a year, and then they get huge amounts of money thrown at them through dark money, which is not illegal. They made it legal, right? They changed a lot of rules and made this except a little company. The corporations will throw money at it, and you can use it to buy off any dissenting votes or anything. Environmental Research Center based in Berkeley. No, this is 100% pro-nuclear lobbying group disguised as an environmental research center. It's 100%. And they promote GM food too, by the way. Did you know U.S. wind and solar added in January, just January to April, dwarfed those reactors, the first ones to get a license in the last 50 years. It took them 14 years to build it. U.S. nuclear and solar put that much energy online between January and April. That's just in the U.S. alone. Worldwide, this year they're expecting, at the rate it's going, to be, 630 nuclear power plants worth of renewables to come online in the next, from January to December. Installed utility-scale solar wind generating capacities grew by 5.3 megawatts and 3.6 megawatts respectively. So that's 9 nuclear power plants worth of renewables came online between January, the first third of the year, January to April. That's impressive. So how many nuclear power plants can you build in 4 months? Can you build 9? No? Oh, well, I guess you're going. Finland's plan to bury spent nuclear fuel for 100,000 years. They got to pump water out of this thing all the time, eh? That's not good. So the cast that they're going to use are not going to last 100,000 years. That's for sure. This stuff doesn't need oxygen to burn either. And so if you got a neutron reflector going on or proximity to fission, you can start up a chain reaction. And you get things heated up to 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, and it doesn't need oxygen. It'll just consume everything around it. If it finds any water, the water will expand so quickly it'll crack the earth. So if it melts down, it's going to crack the earth, no matter where it's to. And this is why they want to put it under the ocean, right? Because they know it's going to crack the earth when it melts down. They hate the ocean. They hate the lifeblood of humanity. The worst thing you can do is do what they're doing. It's the why put it under the ocean, right? It's a fitting name for a huge grave made in Finland over the last 20 years, but this is the first one in history. You got no legacy. Why would you put it somewhere like that? Because you know it's going to crack the earth open at some point, right? And then the ocean's going to go in there, and eventually it's going to end up into everything. Guaranteed, see? There can be no future with the nuclear industry on our planet. On Kello, which lies 1,500 feet deep inside the bedrock island, which doesn't mean nothing. Bedrock doesn't mean nothing at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures to something that doesn't need oxygen. It's the world's first permanent storage site for spent nuclear fuel that's splitting the atom. The world's first permanent storage site for nuclear fuel. A big hole in the ground. It took them 20 years to dig it. And they're going to put bentonite clay around it. They're going to have, including the International Atomic Energy Agency, hailed it as a game changer. And Grossi said many people talked about it, but only them done it. So it's right alongside of the disease factory. And look at this beautiful archipelago of islands. Right, beautiful paradise. They got it destroyed now with radiation, like they done to the Christmas Island and the Bikini Atoll and Montebello and the French Polynesians. Look at the size of this disease factory. Why don't they put it 1,000 miles north, where you can deal with it when the technology finally shows up in the future? Why are you going to put it out there and let it melt down on its own and destroy the future of humanity? And because that's what's engineered into it, see? And being low carbon, of course, calling nuclear low carbon is absurd is the most resource-intensive industry in history. Those plants need external power, gas, oil, and coal, to run it. Dedicated to external, full-size, massive megawattage plants to run it, to build it, to run it, and 60 years to decommission it. For over 100 years. And you're going to call that resource, and like carbon, by the way, you can't have anything without carbon. And so the idea of the carbon was to blame carbon, blame life, and therefore in increments you become so complacent you will kill life to protect the environment because that's carbon, see? But others says reprocessing increases the risk of nuclear terrorism. No, reprocessing is terrorism. You're hemorrhaging radiation into the environment, you twisted little demons. You gotta like the nuclear. It's a given they're gonna be sadistic little monstrous little demons. They can't help it, right? That's their parents were scumbags. Their parents were scumbags. Korea dismisses chance of lifting the Fukushima seafood import ban. There's so many things wrong with that narrative. They're faking the tanks, faking tritium, and now they're going to keep the ban. Yeah, we know it's fake, but we're going to keep the ban. We're telling people lies, but we're still going to keep the ban because we don't want our children eating it. Regardless of Japan's planned release of contaminated water, we'll never stop releasing it. Japan actually melted down. Hello, Earth. Dana the Earth. Dana the Earth. We find a picture of the meltdown. Show you how whacked out these creatures are. I like them. I respect them like you would like a rabid dog or something, right? So the ambassador says there's no exaggeration to say the fate of Japan and the entire world depend on reactor 4 fuel pull. And he's not the only one. There's a whole bunch of journalists told you the same thing. Look at them. They're all pretending they're in the fuel pool. They're pretending they're in that stump, above the stump in that it looks like a building, but it's just panels they laid on that frame. They built the frame off-site, lugged it there, assembled it, and each of those panels are there by gravity. They're very heavy and very big. And then they pretend it looks like a brand new, perfect fuel pool inside on the top of the building to your left that no longer exists. See, and so it's so difficult to tell that story. You're like, wait a second, that's confusing. Tell me about it. So the building to the left, you put a cover over it like this, and that's a lethal dose. You can never go inside that cover. There's no infrastructure there. It's a lethal dose. You can't physically go inside that. Nobody got up there and hooked that up. That's all done by gravity, right? There was some people, some homeless and destitute victims on the ground, but Korea's banned seafood imports from 8 Japanese prefectures. Japan doesn't care. They'll just relabel it, ship it to another prefecture, relabel it. South Korea shipped back 6 million pounds in 2013, for goodness sakes. Top scientists suggest contaminated water actively being pumped into the ocean. It's constant from all kinds of sources, too. Because if it builds up, you got liquefaction that's radioactive. How are you going to win that battle? You're not, right? So dump it in the ocean. Dump it in the ocean. Kill all the species. Make everybody sick. And they still get their pensions. Contamination in Fukushima is almost irreversible in the coastal sediments. No, it's liberated from the water by ocean crashing, the waves crashing. It's liberated through evaporation. And then it ends up in the communities where people get exceptional doses. The studies show that up by or over in Ireland, where radiation emissions from Sellafield come around the coastline into the Irish Sea, and people in the communities are getting vicious cancers and diseases from the plutonium being liberated. Government holds first daily Fukushima briefing. the release of the treated, and every time you see the word treated radioactive water, that's them kicking you and spitting on you. The daily briefing is intended to update the public about the water releases from the disease factory as the trial operation of the discharge facility begins. They're very accommodating. They haven't got any evidence back, and the nuclear experts that went there, they weren't allowed to take any samples or anything like that. TEPCO gave them a short tour of the plant, and they went other places, like Akuma and a few other places. But they haven't even spoken out. I mean, why do you need to wait till the end of the month? Because it's coordinated, right? Like my sensor's coordinated because once they start this process, they figure people will forget about it, calm down, and eventually forget about it. And they're probably right. They're not counting on. They know I'm not going anywhere, and a few people like myself, but there's not going to be much resistance. Had achieved progress, so we got to get it now before everybody goes sleepy again. The Korean inspection team had achieved progress in treating the radioactive water from the plant. This is nonsense. You can't treat the water. I'll show you why after. Park said the team is currently reviewing additional data provided by Japan. So why do you get your own data? Why are you waiting on? How are you going to get an independent if you're not independent? How can you be nuclear experts and not get your own samples? Why don't you get soil samples from the communities? And why don't you get soil samples and air samples and water samples from around the prefecture? And why are you talking about tritium? You're a nuclear scientist, for goodness sakes. You're no different than Kathryn Higley, right? Your job is to murder people so you can get a paycheck every Friday. Does not pose a risk to human health. So to suggest something like that, I'm stunned. Okay, maybe not. Well, I'm shocked that you're such a liar. Pants on fire. Let me bring some rationale back to this conversation. Yeah. Why is it so hard to be a good person when it comes to nuclear? Okay. Here's some entertaining thoughts. Government needs to ban all fish imports from all regions. Japan, 2013. No one can block fish migrating along with the sea currents. Nudge, nudge, Japan. Oh, Japan shipped back 6 million pounds. Yeah, 2013. ELPS treatment is capable of removing all radioactive isotopes. Come on, stop with the nonsense already. There's nothing out there. If ELPS system was capable, then everybody would have an ELPS system. I'd have one in the bathroom, for fuck's sakes. Nobody else got one, only Japan. They're not sharing the technology with anybody. Shut up. First off, if you put 2 sieverts a liter through the filters, then just bye-bye whoever thinks they're going back inside the building in about 20 minutes, right? You can no longer go back in the building. 3 nuclear meltdowns, 8 fuel pools. Hydrogen explosions are the nuclear explosions from the atomized aerosol uranium because of the meltdown. Releases of radioactive contamination forces the Japanese government for a 20-kilometer exclusion zone when it should have been a couple of thousand. The Fukushima nuclear meltdown is ranked by International Nuclear Events Scale by scumbag UN, so they're irrelevant, as the second most severe nuclear accident. Really, the second most. The second most. Chernobyl, they put a sarcophagus over their building, but it was a graphite building. There's nothing left of Fukushima. It's just a stump of the 190-foot, 65-meter, 150 feet wide, 50-meter wide reactor doesn't exist. You got seafloor covered for 2,000 kilometers with marine snow, at 1,200 becquerels a kilogram, of just cesium-134, for goodness sakes. You got Alaska seals concentrated where the radioactive plume made landfall, sickened. The government holds the first daily Fukushima brief, and you thought it was over, didn't you? Did you know the government of all people, finds plutonium in fish cut off Japan's coast? And that plutonium levels suggest the fuel rods were shattered during the hydrogen explosions. And when we done the calculations, we've done it a few times, we got around 18,000 pounds in a building. Because of the two fuel pools in the reactor cores, right? Not counting, of course, reactor 3. That was a whole different monster. So, Papua New Guinea's president or prime minister, or president, I think, backs Fukushima water release, but he retracted it the very next day. So that story's coming tomorrow, I guess. But he originally done it shaking hands. He was at the Fukushima plant. He was shaking hands with the Kushida, the latest puppet. And so he withdrew his comments. Now he's against it, which is very unusual. In fact, that's the first time I've ever seen it. Cesium remains dispersed throughout the water column from the surface to the ocean floor. From the surface to the ocean floor, you say. And the radioactive sea spray has been shown to blow hundreds of kilometers inland. And insects are acclimated to more salt in their diets for about 200 kilometers inland because sea spray liberates the salt. And radiation liberated the same way. So we have a lot of studies pre-nuclear meltdowns of how insects are able to live with a more higher pH in their diet because so much salt shows up for the first 200 miles. Government begins daily press briefing on Fukushima release plan to relieve the public concern. So it was a steady storm of these stories all weekend about Korea dominating the narratives. Marine tunnels and various pipes. So there's these little tidbits that are important because originally when the story comes out, you can imagine how diluted this will get in 6 months' time, these vital pieces of information, right? So there's some really important stuff going on here. They're going to closely monitor, process, and provide explanations to the public regarding any unusual occurrences, says the Deputy Chief of the Office of Government Policy Coordinator for South Korea. He also clarified that the trial operation is limited to several components. They're only looking at several components, like the marine tunnel and various pipes, rather than the discharge equipment. Because Japan wouldn't let them near, because that's a lethal dose, right? If it's not already removed. You can't filter. You can't step over the hoses that are going to the filter. The filter can't. It's radiation. It's different. See, it's not like oil or dirt or bacteria or something, right? You're talking about you're compiling fuel rods, and then what? You're going to pick it up and move it somewhere. You're going to have just thousands and thousands of sieverts in a filter. It doesn't work that way, or everybody would have done it a long time ago. Japan's not being innovative. You only got the homeless, the destitute, the victims of society, immigrants working there. No nuclear scientists. So they clarified the trial operation is limited to several components, such as marine tunnels and various pipes. They're not going to be looking at nothing else. So they're not going to be looking at the filtration, the discharge equipment. They're just going to be looking at the tunnels. They're going to check from the tunnels. They're not going to check the filters from the equipment that can't work, right? And I got that actually coming up. That's quite the revelation. And addressing a recent media report that more than 20,000 tons international standards of strontium was detected in water even after the ALPS treatment. Reassured Japan that a policy to treat the radioactive water until it meets the international standards. Yeah, I got a big magic wand, hokey pokey. You better, okay, we put you in the ocean now. And then when they mention tritium, that's an insult. If you're an academic, you're at a nuclear institution, nuclear universities, and you're mentioning the word tritium to anybody, you're a degenerate monster. You should be arrested. You should probably get the death penalty because you're going to eventually kill millions of people with your lies. It's not like saying tritium is not expected to pose any health risk to humans. In other words, they're saying nothing has ever happened. There's no accidents, there's no meltdowns, there's no radioactive fallout. There's no. It's disturbing that this is how they're gonna. There's no debate. They're gonna force this narrative, and that's what the first couple of stories. And as this extends into months, you will never get this kind of clarification, so to speak, right? With what's making them tick. You'll get other things, but they can't defend this in a real debate. They got no defense. So August 12, 2014, the Francis system, which is like the ALPS, was unused and kept out of circulation. That's 2014. That's August, 3.5 years later. So why did he wait 3.5 years and decide that it's not working? In 2014, also, the ALPS system is yet to function reliably. That's 3 years later. And so the reason is because you're talking about so much radiation. And there's parts of the site you don't even have control of. In other words, it's a lethal dose to walk in that part of the site. Because the buildings blew up and threw fuel assemblies like projectiles all over the site. The series system in 2013, which we never heard about that after 2013. That didn't work either. That was allegedly because the cover story for nuclear for decades has been cesium. And so the series system, the Uriva system, the ALPS system, these were, and Syria in particular was supposed just to target cesium, like it works that way. Like it's one great big cyclotron and it's just going to spin out cesium. No, we're talking about filtration. You can't filter individual atoms. The atoms are all the same size, right? When it comes to a filter. And you're talking about 200 million atoms in a head of a needle, but you can't see it. And one of those atoms can make your life miserable for the rest of your life. It attacks with white blood cells for the rest of your life and over decades builds a tumor around it. But during that, there's many other issues will crop up because you're not just going to get one. Because this is a major event going on for 80 years. The emissions haven't stopped and they never go away. TEPCO says groundwater bypass operation wasn't having an effect, that the ice wall doesn't work, or the fence, and because it's going to cost $1 billion to build a radiation fence. What the hell are you talking about a radiation fence? It's ludicrous to even suggest it, right? You got to have a bottom, you got to have a top, you got to have filtration systems to catch everything. TEPCO's ice wall operation not meeting expectations. The ice wall didn't work. Why would you build an ice wall again? I can't, correct me if I'm wrong, but a real wall doesn't need to be $12 million a year in maintenance. Government accused of defending Japan daily briefing. Let's hope the Korean people wake the frig up. What they are, there's 85% of them are sucked. Now, this is on purpose, are manipulated into thinking the tritium is going to be released instead of what's already happened. And what's already happened is the planet has been covered continuously. That's a model of Neptunian, for instance, which decays, by the way, into plutonium-239. Government downplays polls showing 84% of Koreans object to the discharge of tritium. So they created this debate. I'm thinking, I don't know, we won't know, but we'll see. I'm assuming that Japan is finally going to, at the last minute, Japan's going to say, because China's protesting, Taiwan's protesting, So a lot of the Asian countries, South Korea is protesting, and this is coordinated protest. Don't release the tritium, please. Save our planet. Save our jellyfish. And this is another model of the radioactive fallout based on 20 days. These models are backed up by studies of radioactive fallout. You got 1 million becquerels on the west coast, 20 million particles per liter. You had the 220 million atoms per liter of the 129s. And there's the sodium, the peroxide hydrogen buckyballs. There's the cesium models. And, throughout America, throughout Canada, we got the disposition to fallout. The government that explains the briefing is intended to dispel groundless concerns, fear-mongering, the public about the safety of seafood. Critics claim to use administration. Well, the first thing he done when he was elected, went and got his picture taken at a nuclear power plant and called for a nuclear renaissance to build nuclear reactors all over the world, like peanut butter sandwiches. Defending the discharge on behalf of the Japanese government. This is 100% correct. The professor at the Department of Energy, who was invited to the briefing as an expert from the private sector, backed the government by coming up with data supporting claims Korean seas will be safe after discharge. So the theory is it didn't happen and it will happen. And we know it happened many different ways. One of them is there was 865,000 extra cancers in 2012, a year later. Not everybody was diagnosed, not everybody has health care. We'll be safe even after discharge because they're only talking about tritium. They're refusing to acknowledge anything has ever been released. It'll be easier to dilute the radioactive substances and monitor the environmental effect. We've got our fingers crossed. Why are you using the ocean as a dumping? It doesn't even make any sense when you've got all kinds of fracking holes that are thousands of meters deep that you can probably dump it into if you had to. Why would you dump it there? Well, they already killed the Pacifics, eh? So they need a good kooky cover story, and they need protest, and then they're going to magically say, well, you're right, it's 1,000 tanks. We could probably find somewhere to put it. Right? That's what's going to happen. I don't know for sure. Nobody knows. But I'm thinking this is why they're forcing people to protest. Then they're doing this so-called daily briefing. Oh goodness me, I'm just lost here. Hang on. Let me get back where I'm pretty comfortable. All over the place like some kind of big shot. That's a good way to lose sight of everything. So the main thing is don't let the slaves see shit like that, right? That's the German government's model, by the way. Concerns and suspicions are grown among the public and activists, because they're talking about tritium. So the perfect, here, hang on. There you go. Oh, I might have something a bit better than that. Such a weird conversation, right? Oh, here we go. Let's try this one. Where am I to? Right here. All right, so officially, both of these are the official pictures. Arne Gunnarsson is wants you to believe is like the one behind him. I want you to believe the one to my right, over there. Over there. So that's that's the true one way over there. The fake one is behind me. So South Korea thinks it looks like this, not like that. Not like that. This is getting complicated. I might have to switch back. Jiggity. Oh, can't be good. Now what have I got done? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's put myself upside down on an angle, Dana. Can you screw it up any more than you already got it screwed up, Dana? Maybe. Oh, shit. I should pop up like a submarine. Look at me, choo. Come on, Dana, get with the friggin' program. Hey. See? Stop your fear-mongering. I had it under control all along. The government's dumping radioactive material in Tokyo Bay. They refuse to provide funds to research Fukushima. Zero monitoring. That's the official building. Now, Arnie made the assemblies for the fuel pools. Surely he knows it looks like the building to the right.
The division I ran built nuclear fuel racks for boiling water reactors exactly like Fukushima.
The world's one great big shitstorm of stupid, right? Netflix underwhelming new series inspired by real-life disaster goes nuclear in 68 countries. No pun intended. So top 10 in 68 countries. That's real propaganda right there, folks. I got the whole 7 videos. I think it's 7. I got them all there, and I can't pull the trigger and watch it because it's going to spoil my day and my night when I do, right? And I'm going to have to come out and respond to it. And I think that's what we should do. Like, we should do, like, if it's 7 parts, I should do 7 shows in a row of Netflix on each show and point out discrepancies. How about that? Is that crazy or something? A 7-part series. Oh, God, just the thought of it makes me sick. So much work. I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a latte. We should just do it. I got everything queued up on my screen, and like I hover over it and I'm like, nah, I can't do it. I got other things to do. If I watch that, it's just gonna get cranky. But it's got to get done somewhere in the next 3 or 4 or 5 days. We're gonna have to take it on. It'll be fun. Come on. The days hasn't been particularly well received. Propaganda never is. It works that way. Currently be found residing in the top 10 in 68 countries around the world. You guys are pretty naughty, I tell you that much. You keep me busy. Got me worn out. I got all kinds of broken parts on me now. Japan detects extraordinary high levels of radioactivity off Sendai. Liar! Fear-mongering! You're fear-mongering, Dana. Human embryos in the U.S. are likely bioaccumulating radioactive iodine, cesium, strontium. Liar! Bullshitter, Dana. You're a bullshitter. Fear-mongering. Speaking of bullshitters, the International Atomic Energy Agency is assisting countries in setting up facilities for murdering cancer victims with more radiation. Yay. That makes me sick to my guts. So I only got just a headline. EU lawmakers passed landmark artificial intelligence regulation bills. Don't worry, UN is going to come out and take over that one. And we're going to have to follow whatever they say. It's UN, right? They're a corporation like McDonald's. We better do what they tell us. The Artificial Intelligence Act instills greater privacy standards, stricter transparency laws, just all to protect them, and steeper fines for failing to cooperate. It's already out of the bag, man. It's already released into the wild quite a while ago. Now it's gone mainstream. Corporate violators facing fines up to $33 million, or 6% of the company's annual global. Wonder how they're going to do that. These are corporate personhood. You can't just jack 6% off them. If they're a global company, you don't have too much sway over them. Yeah, you can give them a fine. You can't put anybody in jail. So they make $10 billion, and they get a $33 million fine. That's so scary. That's some scary shit right there. Who cares? I just keep going. The anger we've seen from Boris the monster this week is nothing to the nuclear fury he truly feels. I see one of the most. Now, if you've got sensitive eyes, you probably don't want to see this picture, but I'm only going to keep it up there for 3 seconds. I'll count down and I'll tell you when the picture's not there anymore. Yes, it's Boris in shorts, and 2, 3 seconds. Okay, the picture's not there anymore. You can look now. Oops. Boris. That would make a perfect target practice picture, wouldn't it? Like for throwing rocks and stuff like that. Watermelons, right? Come on, everybody admit they throw watermelons once in a while. Go down, get a half dozen watermelons, get a picture of Boris up, start throwing the watermelons so you can hit them. Come on, you always wanted to. Tell the truth. Stop being shy. So if you were driving along and Boris was on the side of the road and your tire blew out and you accidentally ran over Boris, would you lose any sleep? I don't know if I would, to tell you the truth. He lifted all the restrictions on radioactive food from the nuclear wasteland as one of his last acts before he stepped down. Throw a can of peach juice at it. That's a good way to describe it. Calling. Here, look at that again. That doesn't terrify you. I don't know what will. Government report: Fukushima's Alps malfunctioned 8 times. 8 times since 2013. It didn't work in 2013. Hang on. Hang on. I gotta go find it because it's not true unless I show it, right? Only the nuclear is allowed to say it. They don't have to prove nothing. I gotta prove everything. It's not fair, man. It's not fair. It's just not fair. Hang on. Too late. I already got it done. So 2014, April 21st, the system has yet to function reliably. In other words, it didn't work. So, how could it malfunction 8 times since 2013 in the government report that came out 2 days ago, on the 16th of this year? Huh? Liars. And you got her picture perfect. Look at that. What the frig is that? What was she doing? Peony's head, making faces? Those bloody South Koreans, boy, you can't take them anywhere. Hey, there's lots of crazies out there, thank goodness. Illinois should encourage more nuclear, not less. Not less. Think about that statement. Let's try to poll. Maybe that'll cheer me up a little bit. Has nuclear power plants destroyed the future of humanity and millions of species by endless, perpetual radioactive fallout for 80 years? Huh? Has it? Has it, Dana? Has it? Huh? Maybe. I recently read Ben Jealous' column describing, that's a great name, eh? Ben Jealous. Mr. and Mrs. Jealous, your seat is ready. But are they really injuries, illnesses, and deaths for incidents of Fukushima? Very low, like 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl covered it up. And, well, let's inspect that. A little disappointed somebody would say something like that. We'll just end out with a big 865,000 extra cancers, which is just one of 1,800 diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. So when they come out and claim Fukushima's illnesses and injuries and deaths from Fukushima's low, we had 865,000 extra cancers. Not everybody got health care. Just bear with me. How about this one? What's the odds? There it is. Extreme increase in mortality. Is that deaths? Is mortality and deaths the same thing? I gotta look up Google. Get Google to tell me. I don't know nothing anymore. The number of deaths was 12.5% compared to the same month of the same year before. So there's an extra 13,000 deaths almost. There was also an extra 2,000 cancers in that month, and there was also an extra 2,600 cardiac diseases that month than any other month, any other year. It was a statistical abnormality where 12,700 people dropped dead of heart attacks. 7 of them were on one street in Fukushima City, one shopping street. Took out 7 people in 1 year. Anybody know? If you know of a shopping street like that, put it in the comments, because I never want to accidentally end up on that friggin' street. Let's keep going. They're just going to feed you the old propaganda, and I'm not up to it tonight. Dandelion raised $30 million to scale up homes for geothermal energy. Geothermal is so awesome, eh? We need a geothermal superhero caricature. Department of Energy awarded $46 million for geothermal island projects. 46 million. They sneezed that out for breakfast most days, by the way. Potential to power millions of U.S. homes. Fusion wants that every second or third day, isn't it? Well, we'll get there in 50, 60 years. Well, let's do geothermal. Yeah, that already exists. We don't need any more geothermal. We need fusion. The heat of the sun packed into a little bobblehead. Geothermal key to Philippines' energy demand. What? Other people too, Dana? Power company quietly pushed $250 million in the U.S. politics, which is dark money groups, which is like the Breakthrough Institute and Environmental Progress, the Green New Deal, groups like that, right? Thank you very much. May I have another? And the monies we're talking about, where they start up corporation, lobbyists will start up corporation, the money will come in and they'll pay off people like Householder, right? And a Householder got to get out of jail free card on top of it. He can get 20 years, not. He's going to cooperate with the government. Dirty lobbyists, they're all buddies, right? Somebody prosecute them, everybody else in the industry filled up the gaps and make sure nothing happens. Same old, same old. Nuclear Electrica and partners signed memorandum of understandings for NuScale plant. So you're signing a memorandum of understanding for something that doesn't exist. Is that a little bit strange? Did anybody see that as being strange? Why are you so strange? Ooh. Well, it's World Nuclear News, Dana. Oh, thank you. Oh, crap, not Nuclear Engineering International back-to-back, Dana. That's cruel. Yeah, that's how it works, though, unfortunately. I got to go through it, you got to go through it. U.S. Department of Energy has announced funding of $26 million for groups of universities, nonprofits, like Environmental Progress and the Breakthrough Institute, and private sector partners that will work with communities interested in storing and disposing of used nuclear fuel. So they want a consent-based storage like the crazies are doing here in Canada. And of course, they have a referendum. You have to have a referendum to do that one. And everybody will say no, because they want to put it in somebody's back garden, right? They're like, no way, man. You got thousands and thousands of miles you can put it somewhere. Why my back garden? Well, that way we know it'll never get done. They're doing it on purpose, eh? The Department of Energy works to be good stewards. Once I read that, I was like, okay, that's enough of that story. Let's move to something else. New study using nuclear medicine and rare isotopes. So every time you find a rare isotope, hey, that could probably cure cancer. Let's stick it in somebody, see what happens. We can get some serious kind out of that. They scare me whenever I see these people, eh? They just look right through you. Yeah, I'm coming for you and your loved ones. Let's keep going. I've since beaten the old whip on it too long. Voyager once tackled J. Robert Oppenheimer's work on nuclear bombs. Star Trek, Voyager. Of course they did. The nuclear industry owns the media, owns the networks, it owns the universities, and controls the key positions in government agencies. Done all that in increments over the first couple of decades. Secrecy has its own power, right? Ultra Safe Nuclear Corporation delivers trisol fuel to NASA. Really, you're going to ship that up through the atmosphere? We're vehemently against putting nuclear into space because this is man-made, it's not from space. It doesn't come from the sun. It doesn't come from the stars. We call it man-made because it's man-made. And Ultra Safe Nuclear Corporation, I've had a few of them scumbags stalk me for a couple of years. They're pretty disgusting people, man. Ultra Safe Nuclear was supposed to be building a small modular reactor, but they had a sidekick was fuel. So they actually got to produce something, right? But the fuel they're talking about is unbelievably small. First ever delivery by an industry of uranium nitrate coated particles, tri-structured, fuel to NASA. NASA should, after what they've done to us by releasing James Hansen on us, they should be disbanded, shouldn't they? How safe is storing nuclear waste at Dow Chemical? That's a Canadian story, so I'll apologize in advance for that one. My apologies, because the Canadian pro-nuclear, it's hard to find anybody eviler than the Canadian. The British are pretty good at it, but they're still pretty hard to be evil as Canada's nuclear industry. U.S. National Lab nuclear waste site hit by cyber attacks. What are you doing on the internet, stupid? Everybody looking for another couple of $1 billion handout or something? Oak Ridge National Laboratory let themselves get hacked. Listen, if they're so incompetent they're getting hacked, you need to replace everybody there. You need to close that down like you did with Rocky Point. And this disease factory, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, look at all the water. Water basically downhill surrounds it. So everything that runs off from Oak Ridge, which is a massive site, ends up in the water. And the communities are close by, right? Look at this. It's a big site too, man. All these communities, so airborne from that place for 70 years. Yeah. Department of Energy took steps. They're like everywhere. They're like magic, eh? NASA astronaut claims that aliens prevented a nuclear war on Earth. Astronaut, just one of them. He went to the moon, you know. Could we have aliens to thank for preventing a nuclear war on Earth? Well, they screwed up, I think. good intentions, bless their hearts, but they forgot about nuclear power plants, how that's going to kill the planet. So if you look up radioactive Fukushima fallout, you'll get all the fake pictures, the fake maps. This is, oh crap, what have I got done to myself? Well, this could get complicated, hang on. I screwed up big time, did I? Let's try this one. Okay, all right about there. Let me level this out a little bit. I need something to gauge myself, so I'll put my corner in the line. Come down the line there. Now get out of the way. Get out of the way. Hang on. All right. What a relief, eh? Put your arm up and you point what you're supposed to. So that's the fake one. And right above there's a fake one, over there's a fake one, over there's a fake one. The other ones are from a different event. And so the idea, obviously, and this is a big disinformation campaign when you're seeing all this. And there's so many examples of it, it's sickening, right? So when you go through the whole thing, you find that one basically, which is this one I got. And this is 20 days of radioactive airborne fallout. The rest of it is trying to manipulate with pictures of the ocean, right? And the tsunami map. It's disgusting. That's how bad the propaganda actually was. What are you going to do? We have aliens to thank for preventing a nuclear war. That's already happened from all the testing and all the releases from Meltdowns and from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide. But we appreciate them trying. There's no harm trying. Fukushima radiation fears are linked to increase in obesity among children. Oh, this is junk science, Steve Millay. He, or somebody with a junk science account, and with the same narrative that he uses, harassed me for several years. And I finally got sick of it, couldn't take it anymore. So much propaganda. Once I realized many children, even those living in areas where radiation levels are below the government safety limits, you heartless soul, are spending more time at home after school and during weekends and holidays than they did before the disaster. So the story is linked over to this one. 2 years after the nuclear disaster, Japanese educational minister reports suggest children are still kept indoors. Why is she wearing a traditional Japanese outfit? I guess that's the tradition, is it? Many schools in Fukushima Prefecture continue to restrict children's outdoor activities. The lingering fears of radiation turned children from Fukushima the most obese in Japan. Actually, obesity rates almost doubled across the whole country, and they were expecting it because it's a sign of radiation brain damage. But it's true that schools and parents wouldn't let the children out for several years, just to get to school. But there was no recess, no playing out time or anything. When you went home, you went back in the house again, because you were in a nuclear wasteland. They wouldn't let you move out of there. Lifetime cancer risk 70%. Now this is junk science. So I went through a few of their stories for my own personal amusement to see what was going on. So this is stories that he posted. A lifetime cancer risk 70% higher in females in the Fukushima area. 70% higher for females. And then he says, keep in mind that almost 200,000 or so atomic bomb survivors, there were only some 600 or so extra cancers by 2000. Well, there's 1,800 diseases. You got to look at everything. You can't just look at cancer. And we've covered Hiroshima and Nagasaki many times, right? This was a small bomb. And the majority of the people that were highly radiated died from radiation originally, or were killed by being thrown 600 feet into the air and coming down and landing on something, right? And there were projectiles. It's a very dishonest thing they done there. So if they're saying lifetime cancer is 70% higher for females, that's well, there's 1,800 other diseases: heart problems, liver, lung, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia. You should be checking for all of them throughout the generations. And then those a lot of these studies they're talking about are being led by Kathryn Higley's evil stepsister in the United Kingdom. And we don't even want to say her name. She's such a wicked, horrible, insidious criminal. I'll do worse. I'll play a video because I got the picture in my face now and I can't get it out of my face. So I gotta punish everybody else too. And that'll make me somehow feel better if you all got to see what I can see in my visions right here. Hang on, we'll find it. It's very, very important that I find it. So therefore, I'll never find it. Oh, I could be close. Ooh, that was close. I seen it. Ow, I can't get it out of my own mind. Here's a better version. Let's just use this one. The crazy lady is back. Geraldine Thomas, wanted for genocide, mass murder like Kathryn Higley.
So, for example, coming here, I would have got a dose of 0.07 millisieverts on the flight. And I actually went round Fukushima Daiichi on Wednesday, and the dose that I had going around the site, so very close to where the reactors are, it was 0.01 and probably lower, but that's the lowest it could actually read. So I got more of a dose flying here, and we'll get a dose tomorrow when I fly home, than I would have done from being in Fukushima.
That statement is so evil in so many ways. It takes a special kind of evil to be these people. So I looked up a lot of the stories that were gone. Playing Pass with the Parcel with Fukushima, 2016? Hang on. Yeah, 2016. Thousands of workers have moved millions of tons of radioactive debris from backyards and fields and roads and schools, grounds. They have scraped away acres and acres of tainted soil, acres of it. This is a radioactive wasteland. That's the word you're supposed to be using. In a radioactive wasteland, collecting surface vegetable matter, wiping down entire buildings. In a nuclear wasteland. They don't do that anywhere else on the planet. And hose and scrub streets and sidewalks. Well, to give them, to be honest about it, what did Japan do after Hiroshima and Nagasaki? They wiped down everything and built their cities back on the bomb crater, nuclear bomb crater. Like, the enormity of that statement is absurd. People move back into a nuclear bomb crater. The cleanup effort is staggering in scale and unprecedented. Japanese leaders hope to restore human habitation for more than 100 cities, 100 towns and villages, scattered over hundreds of square miles, and they're going to spend $15 billion. $15 billion. $15 billion. Let's do some math for a bit of fun, right? Why not? Let's do some friggin' calculator, please. Let's see what it turns into. So you got 15 billion, and how many people were 160,000 displaced? So 15 big ones divided by 165,000 people. So $90,000 a person. Then, well, you can get, and not pick up anything or clean up anything. So how much money did the people get? Very little, Dana. Once the radioactive debris is collected and bagged, it's transferred from one part of Fukushima to another and then another. Officials at the Ministry of Environment have set up to 30 million tons 30 million one-ton bags of radioactive waste will eventually be moved to yet another third-level interim storage facility. So in 2016, they're saying they had 30 million one-ton bags they were shifting around. 30 million black bags that only meant to last for a year or two, right? Well, I'm through. Anyway, we'll call it a show here quite soon. If I can figure what the frig I got done. That's the fun part of this, trying to figure out what you got done. 30 million tons, they're going to move to another interim storage. You got 14 million of them moved to Akuma, where they're cutting the bags open and they're going to grow food in 2 kilometers from ongoing meltdowns in a no-go zone surrounded by a nuclear wasteland. Doesn't get any crazier than that besides tritium into the ocean story. The bags deteriorate after 3 years, meaning the waste has to be repackaged regularly. That's quite the tidbit, isn't it? I forgot about that. Little adrenaline rush. Is Fukushima exclusion zone doing more harm than radiation? That's from Junk Science. Oh, Rupert Winfield Hayes. He linked to Rupert Winfield Hayes. Rupert is the only guy that we've seen pretending he was at Reactor 3 fuel pool and Reactor 4 fuel pool. Let me see if I can find one of his videos. Yeah, he's extraordinary. In fact, let's find both of them. You can do it. Where's you to? I got everybody but Rupert Winfield Hayes. Oh, ABC. What's going on? Oh, there he is, Rupert Winfield Hayes. That's why this one is playing off to see if I can find the reactor. This is where he's pretending he's at the fuel pool on top of the building to your left. I just got to adjust the volume because...
So this is really why we've been brought here. Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion after the tsunami disaster. But down inside this pool behind me here is still a vast amount of nuclear fuel. You can see it down there beneath the water. More than 1,300 fuel rods. Those have got to come out. They're currently 30 meters above ground level. This whole building is still not entirely stable, so they've got to get those out.
Okay, so that's him at Reactor 4. This one is going to be him at Reactor 3. There's Reactor 3 picture for you. It's okay, we'll get there. So Reactor 4 is to your left, and Reactor 3 is to your right. Now we've seen him pretend he's in Reactor 3. Now he's going to do it in Reactor 4. I'll get him walking into it. So that's the fake building, and it's on the stump. It doesn't physically touch the stump. And then it shows you the structure.
This is very strange to be standing inside here because this huge structure I'm standing inside is right on top of reactor building number 3.
A demon, eh? So that's reactor 3 to your right. There's just a stump left, right? Let me find another picture that helps articulate what's left of reactor 3. So they tore off the hanging pieces, and this is all that remains. Now, Rupert wants you to believe that he's up in the fuel pool at the very top of the building.
And down underneath me here is the melted reactor core inside this building.
So now he's pretending that he's way above that, way at 100 plus feet above that, looking down on it.
And down underneath me here is the melted reactor core inside this building. Over the top here they have built a shield to lower the radiation levels so that we can come up here, so that workers can come up here to construct this. But radiation levels are still very high here, and because of that we can only spend a few minutes here. Now if you come over here, there's my alarm going off. This is the spent fuel pool. Down inside here more than 560
So he's claiming he's 100 feet above that, looking down on the fuel pool of a building that doesn't even actually exist. And he done it twice. God bless the media. They're such great people, eh? When I grow up, I want to be a mass murderer like Rupert Winfield Hayes, you know? He's my hero, hero. So Papua New Guinea maybe backtracks on the nuclear comment the next day. So in your face, Japan. That'll teach you. What are we doing, folks? I'm going to give it up here. It's 11:57. It's midnight. It's 3 minutes to midnight. I turn back into a pumpkin, right, in 3 minutes. So we're going to have to end the show bit right here. We'll pick up here. It's probably going to go down to the black hole, what we got left over. But I think it's pretty important stories. The big story was the depleted uranium, Kathryn Higley. We started at the beginning. And the prearranged South Korea response before they get any more information. The nuclear scientists are like, well, we need more information. We can't see it until the end of the month. Meanwhile, the media's out there like, everything's good. Shut up and go back to sleep. Let's call it a night because I'm starting to go crazy here. I'll get it together for tomorrow night. I apologize, everybody. 2 hours. I feel my throat is right tickled, eh? So let's close the poll off. Where did I get the poll to? Come on, bring it on. Has nuclear power plants destroyed the future of humanity, the 8 million species, by radioactive fallout? If you're on the fence about that poll, go back and watch my last video of the species die-offs. Yeah, it's a 3-hour video, but it's the first. Just watch the first hour. It'll be easy to watch the next two because it's recent stuff we're talking about. Pretty stunning die-offs. We're exterminating the planet. Let's close that down. Call it a long day and a long night. Thanks, Colette. Thank you, everybody. Nobby, Jan. Everybody, good night, everybody. Have a great night. See everybody. Stephen Young donated 50. Thank you, Stephen. We got it looks like we won't be getting the boat in the water for a while. Got problems with the truck. I'm afraid to pull a trailer with it. We got to figure out what's going on. It's probably the transfer case. I can't find. And I don't know if the transfer case can make that kind of noise I'm hearing. I'm only hearing it when I go over humps or when I'm lugging the boat, right? And we got to figure out what the hell that is before we wreck something. I got no idea how to go about this because it's complicated, let's put it that way. Yeah, it's 18,000 times Becquerels, I think it was. So you got Life with the Bees in Japan commenting, see, Dana, the fish in Japan is 180 more than the safe contamination in the news. They want to release in the news the contaminated water back into the ocean. Well, the water's already been released for 12 years straight. That's why it's 18,000 becquerels a kilogram. And I covered it last week, and I'm glad you brought this story up. I know it's such a complicated, Dan Nasana, Skilwigla. Night, everybody. Anybody had extra hugs for Stephen Young? And Jaffa's, let's do a call out, maybe a shout out. Another CG. James Lucid always has the great comments, eh? Control release of harmful rumors out of the tanks. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Brian S. Good night, everybody. Have a great night. See everybody tomorrow. I'm just going to do a John Shiflett. Quick shout out. If there's such a thing. John Curtis, H2M, HTM, SAM. See everybody in the morning. I hope everybody have a great night. Hope you had a great weekend. I didn't see any earthquakes in the news. Angels Place. Hi, Angels Place. And Jane Chris Kroll. Thank you. Looks like we're through it. Shout out Colette. Extra shout out for Colette. Snuck one in there. And we got everybody. Roger that. See everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night. Thank you for finding time and the energy. If you get this far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. I got that one chance today. If you don't worry. You'll get another chance tomorrow night for the next one. And that's what we'll see you at the next one. Have a great night.